Hello to everybody out there. A wonderful Sunday afternoon, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on January 21st. We are live streaming from Kardec Radio Facebook page, and we are live on Kardec Radio. Kardec Radio, remember, on your Apple or your Android device, go to the App Store or the PlayStation, the Play Store. Type in Kardec Radio. You'll see it right here on the screen. KARDEC Radio, RADIO, 2 words. And you can download that app for free, and you can get Kardec Radio 24 hours a day. It's all Spiritist content. And please join Kardec Facebook page. We have many people, much better than I am, on the Kardec Facebook page. They live stream also. And we have a lot of content, spirituality, talking about the spirit world, talking about, mediumship, your multiple lives, everything having to do with the questions you have asked and wanted answered since you first started thinking as a teenager about the higher questions, about your own spirituality and your own place within the world, why you're here, where you're going, how you want to create your character and your morals, all about yourself. We expose all of that. We bring to you the third revelation, the doctrine of Spiritism, created by Allan Kardec. And now on my site, nwspiritism.com, you can click on his picture. It will take you right to the bookstore where you can buy his books. You can also find other Spiritist authors, Chico C. Xavier, Yvonne Pereira, and others, Devaldo Franco. So it is a wonderful bookstore. You can also find all the books on Amazon.com. And of course, in Allan Kardec, look him up. You don't have to buy the book. You can look him up, Allan Kardec, PDF. You'll find all his books on PDF. Now, tonight, let's get right into it. Tonight is exciting. We are talking more about the lower zone. And we're talking about the lower zone as presented to us by the Messages of Spirits to the Reverend G. Vale Owen. This was created this 1910s, 20s, and 30s, in which he communicated with spirits who told him about the lower zone. Now, a lot of information about the lower zone was also there in the books by Chico Xavier and, of course, Allan Kardec. But we are given a different point of view, I should say, a different point of view, and a bit more information about the lower zone. So let's start into it. And in the lower zone, there's, in one of the communications, they're talking about there's a fortress of Shonar. And Shonar is a high spirit, but one who chose to remain in the region of hard and unrepentant souls. And in this castle with walls and a barrier at the gate, a woman awaits. She was murdered. She was killed by her brother. She knew too much and was a risk, and for that she was disposed of. Now, alive as a spirit on the other side, she prays she may be of aid to her sibling, whom she has forgiven and wishes to help rise above petty plots and desires for power. He too was killed and has resided for some time amongst the brigands and plotters like himself. Now, the whole episode I'm telling you about is all in this book, Heaven and Below, Book 1 of Spiritism, the Spirit World Revealed to an Anglican Vicar. I cannot tell you enough of how interesting the revelations from the Reverend G. Vale Owen are. They not only complement, but they are additive to what has been told to us by wonderful spirited authors, Chico Xavier, Allan Kardec, Leon Denis, Yvonne Pereira. And there's just so much information in what was told to this wonderful English Anglican vicar. So, the person who communicated this to the Reverend G. Vale Owen was the High Spirit Arnel, and he descended from a superior sphere in heaven all the way down to the lower zone, where light was dim and the landscape was composed of sparse vegetation with mountains and deep caverns. First, the lower zone. What is the lower zone? For those who haven't seen my previous episodes, the lower zone starts, as Chico used to say, starts at our nose, and it extends actually probably from the crust of the earth all the way up to the first level of heaven. And that is where spirits who are caught in between it, they're not down into the dark abyss, which is more of a purgatory. Nobody's there forever in the lower zone either. You're only there until you change your attitude and your belief system to, start caring about people, being more honest and loving. So within those caverns live suffering souls, and people have passed from the earth life to the spirit realm without realizing how they have changed. Yes, someone just said they're human beings, and I should say that. And again, that's a very good concept of what we're talking about, is what Spiritism tells us, and we are told, and also it's what is told to us by near-death experiences, is that these aren't just spirits and ghosts. When we die, we are who we were. We are who we are. We just transform out of our physical cocoon into a more less dense matter, part matter, part energy. And as the higher you go, the more energy you have. So that is really one of the mundane secrets of Spiritism that tells us over and over again, that reinforces what other people have found out by talking, other mediums of talking to other spirits, near-death experiences, visions, all sorts of things. We are who we are. You do not change. You do not turn into this harp-playing angel when you die. So Arnell told the Reverend Vale Owen about his destination, which was the fortress of Shonar. And this is how he described it. The building itself was set to a double purpose. It was made strong against assault, and it was strong for healing. Strong against those who either soul or in company should run amok and in frenzy seek to get within those walls. And strong in the influence of which it cast, strengthening this when they had come so far as to their own crimes and desire some better fate than had been theirs in the dark lands without. The great archway was always open, for none could pass beneath it, unless those who worked there gave leave. He might come so far as to penetrate 3 or 4 places within, but then he would stop short in a maze, breathe with difficulty, turn and hastily depart on his ways abroad once more. The reason was that the small cubic space beneath the arch was conditioned to sphere 4. If you have learned what lessons I've already tried to teach you, you will understand that none could pass this barrier who was not either of degree and progress higher than that of that region, or lent help from those who ministered at that place. Now remember, this fortress is in the lower zone. Lost souls in the lower zone don't always realize the absolute superiority of spirits from higher spheres. There would never even be a hint of an equal contest between the two. A higher spirit could materialize or dematerialize at will, or he could hold the inferior creature and bend them to his will. Now remember, when I'm talking about spirits and higher spirits, as you get more love, and you actually reflect more of the light, you become a brighter being because you're reflecting the love you have in your body. That's us we're talking about. Every one of us will one day be a pure spirit, as told by Allan Kardec in the third revelation, as codified by Allan Kardec, as I should say. So that is, again, this whole cycle, as I'm talking about the lower zone, please don't think of it as a punishment of what you've done wrong. It is more of a learning experience. Nothing is done to ever punish anyone. It is done for their edification. And therefore, you will learn these things. And as spirits rise, they transform. When we go into the spirit world, we'll transform. We will become more energy and less matter. And as we strive to learn, we'll accumulate powers and knowledge, and we'll also gather love and charity for our unfortunate brethren. So back to Shonar. He built his fortress at a place he determined so he could assist those still preoccupied with hate, envy, and revenge. Shonar knew he had to handle the rebelliousness with a fist of iron. And Arnell describes Shonar's mission to bring light to the dark inside of petulant souls. This is what was told to Reverend Vale Owen. And when they came over by death, then he met and dealt with them still. And the first lesson he taught them was that he was master. Sometimes this was quickly learned and owned, but often those who were given into his keeping were great souls gone astray. These were stubborn ones and defied his authority for a long time. Yet they owned him dominant, and they were held there in leash, so far as possible. So the harm they would continue to do their fellows should be limited to the smallest possible measure. This would not be eliminated in the whole while still on earth, like to call their like in spirit. But Shinar did what he was able. So what does that mean? In the spirit, in infinite wisdom of the spirit realm, a selection of the cleverest criminals, the most daring, those who were the least responsive to orders, were probably shunted to be dealt with in the territory governed by Shinar. Some subset of that they probably felt that he was the right person to bring them to bear, to give the stimuli to have them change. And remember, the right of free will is always respected, but the law of affinity was also in play. These reprobates, but by their very actions and character, gravitated together in the land commanded by Shinar. Actually, they were extremely lucky. They were to be given a chance to reform. Otherwise, if they traveled to other outlaw cities in the lower zones, they would have become willing lieutenants to cruel despots and would have found themselves locked in an orgy of hate and anger for years and years. Instead, they were given a chance to improve, an opportunity they probably didn't desire. No different from rebellious teenage boys who, driven by outlandish fallacies and who constantly reinforce their misconceptions to each other, they refuse to see the logic before their eyes. This is the population of Shinar's district. The majority of his citizens lived in caverns and huts in the mountains and small plains surrounding the castle. Now, let's look at this. Now, the citadel of Shinar, which was presented to the Reverend G. Vale Owen in the 1910s, isn't the only stronghold place in the lower zone by the spirit world. There are many others. And in fact, in the book The Messengers, dictated by Andre Luis and other spirits around Chico Xavier, Andre journeys down to the lower zone so he may learn about poor souls wandering in the region below heaven. Andre descends into the sparse light, whereupon he comes to an outpost of spiritual love and peace in the middle of a storm of primitive human emotions. Andre tells us his thoughts when he first viewed the castle-like structure. So, this is what he said. The sight of the tall walls were overwhelming. We approached it together, with Vincent and me following Eticeto. I was in awe of this magnificent sight. To my curiosity, though, as we got closer, I noticed the building was under tight security. It had thick walls that seemed to extend forever, surround the complex. Who can imagine that a fortress of this nature would exist in the spiritual world? The common notions of heaven and hell keep people from realizing that after physical death, humans don't undergo fundamental changes, just like moving into a different part of town doesn't change someone's point of view. This is Andre Luis through the spirit Andre Luis through the mediumship of Chico Xavier. Now, he continues, Antecento rang the bell, which was hidden in the wall. Later, I realized that if he were by himself, he would not have needed to do so, since his spiritual powers lay above any type of coarse protection system. However, since we were with him, he brought himself to our level in order to make us feel at ease. Like other superior spiritual entities, he was willing to conceal his own virtues. Look at the similarities between these two descriptions. One from an English vicar in the 1920s, let's say. The other one from Chico Xavier, The Messenger, I think it was late 40s, early 50s. I believe that book was out. These are telling us the same thing. What Andre Luis saw was not materially different from Shinar's fortress, surrounded by unscalable walls with advanced security, both in regions populated by our unfortunate brothers and sisters who left their earth life no better or worse than when they came into it. And inside the impregnable outposts were scenes of beauty. And Andre Luis, this is what he said about it. What a wondrous place. Just ahead of me, beautiful gardens and promenades flanked by lush trees as far as the eye could see. So just think how within the lower zone, how beautiful that could be. And the shadows here weren't as pronounced as outside. A soft light pervaded the entire compound. I noticed that what the walls had been hiding was actually a large complex of buildings that reminded me of an imposing, well-kept old university campus. On the streets and on the promenades, groups of people went about their business, not taking notice of our presence. Therefore, from Andre's description, the castle seemed more like a walled city. Arnell spoke of Sonar's outpost in similar terms, beautiful inside, but not in as grand a terms as to compare to a fortified city. This is what Arnell spoke about Sonar's castle. Passing within, to remember, Andre described kind of a walled city. Now, Arnell is going to describe Sonar's castle. He said, passing within, there runs a long corridor ahead, and off this are many chambers, some large, some small. These are each fitted to a purpose. They are conditioned in diverse degrees and varieties of influence. Here are those placed who are being treated according to their own particular needs. In the center of the pile is a large hall with passages and rooms set in its walls. The hall is hung with rich curtains, and it is very calmly placed, not majestic, but full of comfort to the eye and ear and body. To the eye, for it is light, it is not bright, it is kindly. To the ear, for the curtains are made, so they emit soft musical sounds whenever moved. Waters are also heard, and at the further end, there is set a large basin level with a marbled pavement. And there are fish in it. Also, there issues high up in the wall a waterfall, which is very pleasant both to the eye and the ear, to the body, for this is the place where the workers come from time to time for refreshment. And in that hall, there's an atmosphere of rest and kindliness and purity, and in sooth, a blend of all the opposites of those evil sentiments given forth by the poor, darkened souls yet yonder about the mountains and the plains. So once again, two mediums, one from England, who died in 1931, well before World War II had begun, and the other from Brazil, who received the book from the Spirit Realm, 1944. Both Spiritists, although the Reverend G. Vale Owen never gave himself that exact title while in the earth life, but that's what he was. Both reporting the placement of merciful outposts in the lower zone to assist souls to find a better path. Both expressing the danger of the surrounding area and the need for protection. This is why I just love the Reverend G. Vale Owen. He tells us so much more, and I go through it in this book, have it in below. And you can find it on my site, nwspiritism.com. He tells us, even more than what we've heard from Chico. And Chico is, there's just so many marvelous books. Anyone on listening to this program, please read Chico Xavier's, the whole Andre Luis, at the minimum, the Andre Luis system, his first book, series, I should say, his first book, No Solar. It's also a movie. It's a movie in Portuguese, but it has English subtitles. Great music by Christopher Glass. I would recommend that to everybody. It's one of the few movies that my wife and I we'll probably watch it at least once a year. It's a great movie. And it just gives you the whole feeling. And it never does say, I think the movie says the word Spiritism, but it gives you the feeling, the environment. It gives you the truth of a celestial city and who we are, who we were as we change from our physical life to our spiritual life. And of course, and then what Spiritism and what Allan Kardec told us, codified from the spirits told him, and he codified from the messages from many mediums, I should say, is that this is why we're here, right? We go through life after life to become improved. It's what reincarnation is all about. So now let's get to the point about the sister and her brother. It was to this level, an outpost in the lower zone, that Claire, the forgiving sister, traveled to wait for her brother. And there must be uncountless of stories like this. But what this story should tell you is that nothing is irredeemable. Ourselves were never irredeemable. Nobody is. No, and the spirits tell us, the Spiritism tells us, there is no such thing as absolute evil or absolute good. Except, as you go very, very high in the spirits. But all of us have a mixture of both, especially us here on this world. And all we have to do is start taking the first step. And in this story, I want you to understand is how how enthusiastic and how welcoming they are to anyone that strives to improve themselves. And this is true of anyone out there listening of us here on earth. As soon as you start thinking about and taking that first step, you will be surprised at the help that you'll start getting. And in fact, the Spirit Joanna de Angelis tells us, in order for us to start fixing ourselves, to start giving ourselves a sense of inner beauty and inner peace, we should meditate, a half hour, 20 minutes, 5 minutes once a week. And we should do that like at the same time. And Spiritism tells us that we should have a home study where we look at the Spiritism, we read some of the Spiritism. But even if that is not what you'd like to do, just meditate. And as you meditate and think about how you can improve, messages will start coming to you. It may take 3-4 weeks, a couple months, but once the spirits know that you're there and you're trying to improve, you will start being helped. Believe me, everyone I've talked to in the Spiritism, they have felt this at one time or another. And they those who are into it, they feel it more and more. So let's get back to Claire, because this is a very good story. So so she was staying at the fortress. She came from a higher level, but then she went down to the fortress because she believed she could find her brother would be there eventually. So admits a sanctuary of beauty circled by dark passions. Arnell tells us how as he entered the large hall, he spotted Shonar and Claire. And this is what Arnell says. Here we met Shonar. He was sitting near the fish pond, and with him was a young girl who sat beside him upon the stone bench. From time to time, she looked at him with love and gratitude. I knew her, for I had met her on former visits of mine. As we came toward them, she arose, running to me, laid her hand upon my breast, looking brightly into my eyes, and she said, Oh, my Lord Arnell, news, which to a young lady is as sugar to a filly, said I, smiling. So Arnell said, Nay, she said, real news this time, dear Arnell. He is within our walls at last. Really here, Arnell. Now give me joy of my news. And she held me with both hands upon my breast and kept me at arm's length while she gazed steadfastly into my face with a look of triumph. And indeed, I lowered my defense at once. Taking her within my arms, with some tenderness, I laid her fair head against my shoulder and said, Claire, my little one, this be news indeed, and God his blessing. It is worthy all the travail of the road I have come to this far place to hear the like of it. And now, my dear one, you shall take me to him, for I would also give him welcome for his most splendid fight and victory at the end of it. So the outpouring, this is what Arnell reported, and he was there. So the outpouring of gladness that one who sank so deep is now climbing out is genuine. High spirits don't mark violent trespassers as unreformable brigands for life, as we do frequently here on earth. I know I have. I know I have looked at people and said, and now I know not to do that. But as you understand Spiritism, you understand that everybody is redeemable, and more importantly, and this is the most important thing, is whatever we see someone doing something that we think is horrible, or we feel that they're worthless, in some previous life, we have probably done worse than whoever we disdain so much. This is really one of the lessons of Spiritism. And these high spirits, as Shonar and Arnell, they have this humility and this empathy for this very same reason, is that they know they've been there too. They've made those same stupid mistakes. They realize the path to ascend is not straight, but a road which goes forwards, backwards, and sideways, as there are temptations at every turn. And only by occasionally succumbing to those selfish pleasures do we learn to deny them in the future. So the earthly rewards are terrifyingly real to us while in physical form, and at times they're an irresistible magnet pulling us towards them. We think if only can we achieve that goal, we shall have everything we could desire in life. That is a chimera, but one that was blindingly real at the time. And that illusion took hold of every fiber of our existence. And Arnell reports how Jean, Claire's brother, had once gambled all on a quest for a dream. This is what he said. The man whom she had told me this news was her brother. I remember her brother killed her, and yet she's still forgiving. What a wonderful woman. They were two children of noble lineage and great wealth on earth. For self-protection, having learned of some plot of his and evil doing, he killed her. When she learned that he too had come over, being slain in a fight to which this plot had led, she besought that she might return near his place of expiation to help as she was able, and to welcome him on his amendment. More times than one I had found her waiting for him who still dwelt out yonder in the gloom. Solemn she was and quiet, but full of sweet resignation, and now faith that her prayers would avail in due time. And now he was coming to the fortress and was placed in one of those dim-lighted chambers, somewhere near the outer walls of the citadel. Anon she took me to him, and he sat upon a bench against the wall. And I spoke to him kindly, and told him how we all had helped him find his way hither. He, all the while unwitting, I told him of his sister's purpose in being hereabouts, and of her patience in waiting. When I'd ended, he was in tears, with his faith was in his hands upon his knees. This was he who in earth life had been a young scoffer at all which was good, a follower of most that was evil, and through it all of haughty demeanor, in that he was of high rank and of ancient lineage. So, but unbeknownst to Claire and Jean, there's another high spirit, James, who watched the scene. And James, who too had supported Claire in her quest for a brother. He was a relative newcomer to the spirit realm after his passing, but due to his piety and wisdom had risen rapidly up in the spiritual spheres. Unlike Jean, who was born with a silver and gold about him, James came to earth in humble beginnings. He had not gained. Oh, wonderful! You listen to radio in Serbia. Thank you very much. So he had not gained wealth or fame during his time on our planet. He gained a more valuable prize: love, charity, and honor. So attributes which enabled him to ascend with astonishing speed in the spirit hierarchy. And of course, any one of us can do that if we just are humble and hard workers and open. Heaven is composed of different levels of spheres. And at each sphere, we have to learn and acquire the required lessons and the required characteristics, then changes to our personality for us to go to the next level. It's like school forever. But it's not like school you have to go. We all have free will. We can go up or down, or not down, but we can go up as slow as we'd like. We can park ourselves for thousands of years if we want. And then Arnell, in the description of Jean, he didn't emphasize his ill deeds and non-beliefs to belittle him, but to explain what trap he had fallen into while on earth. Arnell continues the story of the encounter. This is what Arnell says. I thought of it all as I stood there silent for a moment, and then Claire spoke. I have been permitted to come hither, Arnell, thrice ere this, and I have told him that now he is no more of those who need despair in any wise, for he has come to this house a victor. And Shinar said, that is true. And now you have come so far. You will continue. Be brave, dear lad, and Claire will help you, and we will help you also. Then he raised his face, slowly got him on his feet, stood there thinking a moment, and then slowly walked towards us. About us the gloom was not so deep, for we could not subdue our own brighter condition in the whole. And he said, this is Jean said, I know you, sir, for him my sister is named Lord Arnell. I thank, sir, for all you have done for me, a stranger. What horrors and what tortures I have endured, I have well deserved. But that the gentle Claire, my sister, who shed her love smiles upon me, who did her such great evil, is to me both anguish and sweetness in one blend. And who is this one, sir, by your good leave? I have not seen this young lord hereabout sooner. Then Shinar said, he told him the history of James, and he turned to the young leader and said, had we met in earth life, sir, I would have scorned you for a lout and my much inferior. I meet you here and crave your leave that I may touch your hand. At this, James stepped quickly forward and seized the other's hand with his own in a right hearty clasp. Then looking upon the young man kindly, he said, this is what James told to Jean, my brother, that noble blood of yours did you no good turn on earth. But there is in you some true worth and high nobility. We find it here, my brother, in unlikely people. You are one of these. Keep in mind, my brother, for you and I may do great things together yet. And then Shinar said he could feel there was mutual sympathy of understanding between these two, which he couldn't fathom, right? He says he's seen it before. In cases where two souls meet who have never met before, even in the spirit world, Each seeks the other out by instinct, for they realize with no reason forever that there's something akin to them. And he doesn't know how that worked. So let's stop there for a second. So Gene learned the hard lessons thrown at him, right? The spirit world had probably knew the choices he would likely make once born into wealth and power. His failures, his decisions to grab what he wanted, no matter the consequences, was an episode that he required. Now think about this. Think about all the people in our present day, in our present modern day, right, who have wealth and fame, and Alan Kardec in the book, in the Spirits book, right? If you read the Spirits book, what's the hardest trial? And I know people scoff at this. I don't blame you. It's being rich. Because there's so much temptation. You can treat anybody any way you want, and they'll still come and try to do whatever you want because you have money. And if you have money, that means you are better than they are, right? In our culture today, and culture actually through thousands and thousands of years. And I agree. Being rich and famous is extremely difficult, because if you can keep yourself humble about all, with all that, then you truly are a superior spirit. And I believe a lot of people are allowed to come to this world and have a trajectory that is just, to us, living incarnates is just remarkable, is actually probably the worst thing that could happen to them. But it's not, right? Because let's take Gene now. If Gene had sat in a classroom and read about a young man, heir to a great family, with intelligence and wit, who made all the morally wrong choices and died grabbing more wealth and power, Gene would have learned nothing except think about how he would have tried to accomplish the nefarious goal and be successful. No, Gene had to live it. He had to live the entire curriculum so he would be the center of the story. The drama had to play out for him to take to heart the moral theme of his last life on earth. So think about what this is why we're on earth, right? Is to learn those hard lessons, to just, knock us off our pedestal and say, what you thought was totally wrong. If he had just read this again, as I said before, he wouldn't have felt it. He would not have gone through the suffering to internally change his character and his personality. The care and planning the spirit world put into Gene's education is the same as spent on each one of us. When we are in the middle of a stressful period in our life, think well what lesson we need to learn. Think well what our behavior should have been, and think well all those times we could have done better. Then rip out those urges for revenge and hate for the players that were involved, and think only of ourselves and how we should humbly seek out the truth and improve our character. In fact, I have one of the books I wrote is The Problem is the Solution. And I use a lot of other examples like this, is the problems you are now really are the solutions that you're going through. Because you have done things, you may be ill, you may have a horrible marriage, you may be, addicted to something. These are all things that are happening to teach you something. They're for your edification. They're for your improvement. And this is really, I think, the key of a increased inner harmony and spiritual health, and actually physical health, of once you understand Spiritism or anything, even Buddhism or whatever, to understand your place on earth, is when you understand your place on earth as a place to learn and a place to improve, it changes your whole life. It radically changes your whole life. So I want to go another example from the lower zone. And this is, again, in the Fortress of Shonara. Today's episodes really kind of give you some real, real life stories of what is happening. What is the lower zone for? Because it's not for punishment, as I said before. So, in the lower zone, in the area surrounding the Fortress of Shonara again, there was a blacksmith. They called him the blacksmith, and he cruelly reigned over his companions. and he bullied the men and terrorized the women. He died and he found himself in the spirit world the same as he left it. He was without pity. He scoffed at the weakness of others and took advantage of his strength and domineering personality to lord over those who couldn't or wouldn't fight back. Yet the spirit realm tells us there is no such thing as all bad or all good. Everyone is a mixture. And the blacksmith, too, had good lurking deep within him. Why else would he be sent there, right? There's everything. There's no chance, right? If there is, there's very little chance. Even not just on our planet Earth, but even in the spirit world. It had not yet found a way to emerge, but the process of shedding the rough exterior and allowing the soft and beautiful to reveal itself is one that is not rushed, right? Each one of us, right? I know when I was younger, I was uncaring. It took a long time for me to become empathetic. And therefore, the timing is up to each individual. Free will means that no one is forced, only presented opportunities to be picked up or left on the floor. And again, Arnell told the Reverend Vale Owen about how they met and encountered the blacksmith. And this blacksmith was given such a chance to improve, not directly, but still somehow an event that opened a small door. And it began with Arnell accompanying Shonar to view a woman speaking with some men about their chances to improve. And they went to this hut, and they were invisible to all this. The woman was visible. She was one of the workers in Shonar's castle fortress, and she was speaking to the men. And one of the men asked her, he goes, "So where do you come from? Your words are fair, and your voice is kind, but here we have been these long days past and seen not of the glad tidings of which you speak," right? So they haven't seen anything. She's telling them of this marvelous world, but said, "We haven't seen that." And then she answered to him, because no, and yet they are for you, if you will continue on your way of progress with courage. For word has come to us in yonder fortress that you are wishful to move from this drear place toward the light where your dear ones dwell. And then the man asked, sitting around the fire, goes, "Well, why don't they come to us, right? We've passed the gate of death, and you say they love us, but we haven't seen them." And then she says, "Well, look, think for a little bit. Would you want your wife and your little son to come to you in your condition?" And then he thought, and he thought about it, and he goes, "Yes, in my shame, you speak the truth. I would not have them come my way, and I wouldn't have them bear witness to the manner of life that I've been in, down here in this area." So he goes, "Okay, so what do we do?" Okay, she said, "Well, if your friends and you want to rise, come with me, and I'll help you get to the light." She'll take him to Charnel's fortress. And the man arose and called his two friends. And he says, "Okay." I said, "Let's go." But then one of them said, "Well, wait a minute. There's a woman off yonder to my beholdens, and she has been with this bully called the blacksmith. And he would have felled me, would have, hit him hard, but she came between and she took the blow for him, right?" And then she goes, "Can you help us rescue her first? And I want to help that poor girl along, because when I meet my wife, I want to tell her, of what she did for me." She goes, "Okay, we will go. And we'll help rescue that girl, and we'll take you to Charnel." So Shonar, Arnell, the woman, and the three men accompanying her walked to where they could rescue the young woman. And Shonar and Arnell retained their less dense attributes of higher spheres. Hence, they were still invisible to the other men as the entire party came to their destination. There was a fire before the entrance, and around it sat some score men and women. And when they became aware of the approach of the four, they all laughed scornfully. You hear this when you hear this in the books by Chico Xavier, right? And it's a lot of sarcasm and laughing at you. It's like being in the worst 8th grade class you ever were at, right? With all the kids that you didn't really like. And actually, I've heard this during medium meetings, right? One of the mediums would, a spirit would come up, and they would basically, the spirit would just insult everybody there, telling us we didn't know anything, and then they would laugh and go away. I don't know, other people have heard this. I'm not a medium myself, but I've been there and I've heard this. And so one of the people sitting at the fire, as he's, as the woman and the men came, he goes, oh, you came back to us. And he goes, and he laughed and he says, no. And he goes, and then another man came forward. He goes, and he was big. He goes, okay. And this was the blacksmith. He goes, what does this mean? She goes, I see you have a lady in your party. Well, I've seen her like before, and she's problem. Get these people out of here. He goes, and madam, these men are no men, but faint hearts. And what purpose is that? Why do you come here? She says, and she's told him briefly that she wanted to bring the woman. And he said, okay, the slut is within her bower there. And if you wish her, take her away and be gone. And the woman approached the shelter, and as she stooped to call the girl within, the blacksmith, he raised his club to hit her over the head. And then the three men rushed him and caught him before he could strike. And they threw him backwards, and he fell on the fire, and he rolled around a bit. And then he started rushing. And then the men said, nope, you've bullied that girl over long, and us too. Here are three who have broken away, and we be five more. So even some of the people around the fire all said, no, okay, we've had enough of you. We want to actually follow this bright spirit, this woman, and we want to improve ourselves. And he said, okay, everybody, you leave. I don't even want you around. And then this is what happens. And so here you have this blacksmith just, alienated everybody. He told everybody, you're all too weak. I don't even want you, because he knew he couldn't win against this, this probably slight, beautiful woman spirit, because she was brighter. And he knew, right? He knew that he couldn't. And then he said, and then what happened is Arnell said, okay, he became visible. I'm sorry, Sonar became visible. And he said to the blacksmith, he goes, how long, my brother, will you so deceive yourself and those your victims? You are not the man of might you try to appear. You have neither the strength of body nor will of which you assume. Cease this mockery in your own folly. Only thus shall you fulfill your destiny, which is not to be sought in this drear land, as well you know. So the blacksmith has changed, right? The people of the region over which the fortress was, they were there because there was some leaning towards the light, towards a better life. And all of them had been further down. And the one who had been the lowest down of all of them was the blacksmith. Now he's climbed himself up. And every word that the blacksmith heard, Arnell says he's kind of found it in his heart. He knew the words were true, but he could not at the time, subdue his boastfulness in himself. And he said, I, master, these words of yours are good words, but not for me a while. Let these others choose to go. I will no longer let them. They shall go, and I'll be alone with my own business to unriddle the riddle of my heart. It is better so. So do you hear me, weaklings? Get from that mockery of a fire and leave. So he left. He says, okay, And Shinar raised his hand, said, fine, you are true, for these are weaklings and need soft treatment. And they will come with us. So Shinar gathered, and they took him all the way back to the castle. And thus the blacksmith was left alone in his camp. So now, sometime later, Shinar was sitting in his fortress, working, and he was told that there was a man at the front gate wishing to speak with him. And Arnell was there at the time also. So they both went out to find out who had called. And they found the blacksmith in the archway under the gate to the fortress, which protects the castle by screening any lower spirit from entering. And then Arnell tells us about the meeting. He said, the man stood some yards away, just within the circle of gloom. And Shinar called to him, standing within the archway. He says, come you near to me, my friend, that I may see what manner of you. And then the blacksmith said, well, I can't come forward where you are now. The light within there is of discomfort to me. Nevertheless, and he took a couple steps forward. He goes, I can't come any farther than this. And Shinar said, I see you now. He goes, you've been thinking since you've last met. And then, everybody, they could see it was true. And So then he had been thinking about what he's done. And Arnell says that the blacksmith made a resolve to mend his ways, and that all that false delusion of great strength and valor began to fade. And he appeared just what he was, no hero, nor a leader of men, but just a sinner in his weakness, and one who should follow humbly those who were better and stronger than he, if he would find ease of body and mind. And so Arnell, when he talked about the blacksmith, stated a central truth about the spirit realm. No matter what level a spirit resides, their outward appearance is a factor of their inner thoughts. They are what they believe themselves to be. Some appear as bright high spirits, and others take on the shape of demons and monsters due to their image of themselves and their actions. So the blacksmith looked less than he used to be when they first encountered the fire, because the blacksmith, finding that he no longer enjoyed nor desired oppressing others to his will by force, changed. His outward appearance shed its threatening image, and his body began to reflect his true nature, a thoughtful human who knows he has much to learn and much damage to atone for. Shanar told the blacksmith to wait while he and Arnell went to check the records of what the blacksmith had been up to since they last met. And he found out the blacksmith now had 4 women in his crude hut. And Arnell was curious, for when they first met the blacksmith, he had but one, and she was terrified of him. And he walked back to where the blacksmiths were reposed under the tree, and in listening to inquire women workers, they were all with him. And so he said, "Okay, rest where you are, blacksmith. So the music helps you." He goes, "Now what can we do for you and your 4 companions?" He goes, "Well, that's what I came about, my lord. So these 4 I found ill-used and cruelly treated by a small band of wanderers. So I took them to shelter. So now the blacksmith is actually seeking out people who are being oppressed and helping him." And he says, "Okay, we'll come." And so they went and they got the woman from the blacksmith's hut, and they're helping. He actually brought people to them. He goes, "Okay, blacksmith, why don't you come in the house? I'll give you help too." And he said, No. He goes, "You mean me well. I thank you for the boon you offered me, but I need to keep helping people here. I've done so much wrong for so long that I want to bring you more." What he said is, "I shall bring you more fish to your net from time to time." He said, "I have not what strength of body was to me but a little while ago, yet my mind is now more given to action and my will more strong. This will serve me." So he goes, "Okay." He says, "Fine." And so then he left, and then Shanar went to him, and he placed his left hand upon the man's right shoulder and took his right with his own, and he didn't even speak. He just looked at him, and he goes, "Okay, go on." And then Shanar told Arnell, he goes, "Arnell, my brother, what time God made man, he made a mighty riddle, like a maze within a garden, hard to solve, but get you to the center, and there's a very comely bower full of beauty as a bird is full of song, and it is worth the while to get there." So there's a lot of meaning in what Shanar told Arnell. This is the greatness and the great shame of mankind. Humans, meaning us, are capable of terrifyingly cruelty, right? Yet these same animals on top of the food chain can perform loving and magnanimous actions which can melt the heart, but which came from a mortal monster just a short time back. Why? God made us this way, independent with free will, so we could find our path to love. Only after tremendous destruction of the environment around each one of us, with our free will, he also gave us a conscience, a device to constantly measure our progress, which speaks to us and lets us know if the road we take is the right one. Countless lives are spent in just learning to pay attention to our moral governor. Only after dying repeatedly of stress induced by spreading harmful vibrations due to our deeds do we eventually come out one day with the realization that love is the only path and that all other leads to thorns and regrets. Along the way, we experience small islands of compassion and charity, just enough to light the flame, to feel that small tingle of satisfaction of helping our fellow humans. Women and men travel through multiple lives, taking advantage of the opposite sex in whatever manner they are able, some by brute force, others by cunning. But by the planning of the spirit realm, they are born into the world, the sex that they scorn. By all of this, they learn about life on both sides. Karma, which is the great record keeper of the spirit world, tracks our every move and flags every misdeed and every good deed accomplished. All of this is put into the mix, and the best set of courses, a customized curriculum, is fashioned for each one of us. So we may learn through all the chaos we spawn each time we come into the present world. Eventually, through all the hardships, our core becomes brighter and full of love. We start to shine. So we begin to understand that service to others is the greatest deed possible. This is what Shonar was trying to say. The journey through the garden and the maze is complex, but at the center is the reward, the bright light of love unbounded and connected to God. And so therefore, think about the trials and tribulations that all of you have gone through. They're all there for a reason. I know it's amazing. I mean, and I felt when I was younger, my life, I was the master of my life. I made the decision of what was going on. I got the results of those decisions, right? And, there was some sort of random chance involved, but I was the master. Well, once you understand Spiritism, you understand, no, it's not true. You're like that student in high school, and you go from class to class. The bell rings. You go sit in class. It's 50 minutes. You're in class at 50 minutes. The bell rings again. You get up. You go to the next class. You're in that class for 50 minutes. Whatever subject that class has, that's what you're supposed to look at. Have you noticed that life is like that? You go through one episode, then the next episode, then the next episode. It's like one major thing happens, one after another. And like that student in class, we can decide to be attentive and, okay, hi teacher, yes, tell me more. I want to learn. Or we can fall asleep. We can deny it. We can ignore it. And the problem is if we deny and ignore and we learn the wrong lesson, it's just going to make our next life. You're going to have to retake that class. Therefore, all the problems we go through, the obstacles we go through, that difficult person who, oh my heavens, I hate that person at work. You have to look at that as that person is there for a reason. The person there is to challenge you and to make you a little bit more understanding and patient and learn how to deal with people like that. I know it's tough. And it's tough because it gives you the realization that we are so tight with the spirit world that everything we do is watch. It's like you're in kindergarten and there's teachers all around you. And of course you're 4 or 5 years old and you have, you don't know anything. You're just running around and you don't even know the teachers are watching you, right? That's kind of where we're at. So let me finish the story of the blacksmith. So the blacksmith would come back every so often and he would keep bringing people. And he got better and better and his force of will got higher and higher. And he was helping people all he could. And so finally what happens is that he says, okay. And the blacksmith came back one more time and Arnell was there again. And he says, no, you need to come into the castle. He goes, okay. And so he said they went into the hall and they sat upon a settle to the right as they entered. And then the blacksmith says, oh, I thank you, my Lord Shonar, for your good patience with me. He goes, this young knight here told my poor wanderers they shall be well cared for. And that's well indeed. So if it's okay with you, I'll just sit here and rest a while and then I'll get back to my work again. And he goes, then Shonar says, blacksmith, you have by much labor earned advancement. We have workers here who overtake the affairs you have made your own till now. They will make your house yonder their point of vantage, and you shall go on to other work in brighter places, as is your need. But the blacksmith said, no, I want to continue. And then he stopped. And then he looked. He looked at 4 people who stood near the middle of the chamber talking. And they had come there with James. Remember, I talked about James in, with the brother and the sister. And Shonar goes, but do you know these 4? Of course, Shonar knows the answer, right? And he goes, Those two lads have a semblance of my own two sons, but of the daughters I had only but one. Yet these two are surely sisters, for both of their faces are sisters' faces. I'm not able to solve the riddle, sir, and I'm very much perplexed. He goes, yet the one is of greater age than the other blacksmith, which Shernar said. And then Shernar told him this is another truth of the spirit world. My friend, you have spent your time here too in regions where your youth is rarely seen. These four has come here on a visit from a sphere where childhood grows to youth and age returns to like condition. Parent and child preserve their kinship, which also finds expression outwardly, but none may say that one is old, the other is young, as age and youth are counted upon earth. So the blacksmith looked intently at the group and then slowly says, well, can I leave and go talk to them? He said, yes. And as he went forward, they turned and they saw him. The girl leaped forward and encircled his neck with her arms. And then came the two boys, and each one took a hand and raising it to his lips, held there long and caressingly. Then they fell away, and the other woman came forward, and there were tears of joy in the eyes of both man and wife, as they took each other breast to breast and rested there, content to meet and greet each other after so many years. After decades of separation, the blacksmith had finally reunited with his family. Nothing is by chance on this side or the other side. Well, maybe a little bit. The blacksmith was led through the gate into the hall for a purpose. It was planned that he encounter his family at that moment of time. High spirits requested that his wife and children visit the fortress at that particular moment so they could see their father. The spirit realm works hard, rewards hard work and sacrifice. The blacksmith who toiled so long in compensation for the wrongs he committed in lower zone was judged and received his due. He had grown spiritually out of that sphere. He now belonged to a higher level. So we saw the same thing, and I forgot what book it's in. Someone could remind me. But when Andre Luis was searching through the lower zone, he encountered his grandfather. Again, this was not by chance. Now, Andre loved his grandfather, but to probably all the other people around him, they saw his grandfather just as this kind of mean miser, right? And his grandfather was in the lower zone because he was a miser. He was digging at mud, which he thought was gold. That's kind of the what they do with misers in the lower zone is they let them search until they get tired of it. Andre Luis was able to help his grandfather go to a small little fortress where they told him how they were going to reincarnate his grandfather into a probably more of a toiler or a worker, so he could learn humility and not be too excited by the prospect of wealth. So it just shows you that all of these things, it's all there. Just think of the earth and think of under the earth, there's purgatory, a little bit between the earth and heaven is the lower zone, and then there's layers of heaven around that. Think of us as one huge campus. And we here in the physical form, we're just one, one third of the student body. On the lower zone where we walk are all errant spirits all around us, talking to us. We don't consciously hear them. Most of us subconsciously hear them. And we're here to learn to filter out, these bad ideas and these bad feelings and emotions. We're here to filter everything through our conscience. And therefore, it takes us back to really why we have a lower zone, right? So the lower zone, and this was even discussed even from when in Andre Luis's knows a lot of the first book, is it's really it's somewhat like a detention area whereby a student is forced to stay after class in a room void of anything but his or her own presence, free to do no homework or anything. Oh, there's Marita. I go, oh, hello. He goes, and so they're in this tension and say, okay, is the lesson going to sink into the mind of a teenager? Probably very seldom or slowly at best. And that's an apt analogy for one more element. The classroom should be full of others like him or her. So you think about these teenagers all within this detention classroom, talking, teasing, destroying, bullying, gossiping, or worse, fighting, never-ending motions of ill-intentioned and destructive behavior. Some would like it at first. Others would be instantly abhorred. But even the hardest souls would grow tired and long for peace. Such is the function of the lower zone, that place where primitive emotions and character are laid bare, where the full effort of vicious actions are felt in all its nakedness, where there are no safe havens or caring family to retreat to. Only in the lower zone does one confront oneself so starkly without padding or consolation of any type. It is as if one is stripped of all the clothes and tied to a post on a beach, and the storm comes in and the waves, the wind pound you relentlessly, and you can't move or retreat, yet you are forced to stand and take it. During this time, you can only do one thing, and that is to think and analyze about your life, right? You trace your steps back to determine how you could arrive at this post on the beach. Every detail of your life is examined. Tied to that post long enough, and you soon tear down every fallacy that you've clung to in the past. Each false reason for bad action is discarded and replaced with regret. Eventually, you find the root cause of behavior, whether through selfishness, envy, or greed, or a combination thereof. It all crashes into itself, and a great emotional wave of remorse ensues. Only then do you cry out for something greater than yourself. And unfortunately, that's the purpose of the lower zone. It's there to get people to go down to the foundation of their character and examine themselves. It's tough there. And in fact, we're told over and over again by spirits that it's much better to learn your lesson here in our physical world than having to do in the lower zone or below in the spirit world. So I want to say thank you for everyone that's made comments on the video. I really appreciate it. I can't tell you how exciting it is to have to present to you again, and what a wonderful audience. And I just want to let everybody know again is this, if you haven't read the Spirits book, this is where it all started. Allan Kardec, the great codifier of spirit. Me, it was revelatory. Some people read it and it just clicks immediately. Other people, maybe not so. That's why I have written other books like Explore Your Destiny, The Case for Reincarnation. I try and take spiritist writings and I try to explain it in a little bit different manner. So it all depends upon people's, everyone has different learning abilities, learning techniques that they like. Everyone has, how they like to do things. And therefore I just want everyone to really look at it as they would see fit. I want that there's an avenue for everybody to learn Spiritism, how they like it. So I want to encourage everybody, go to my blog, nwspiritism.com, listen to Kardec Radio, go to Kardec Radio Facebook page. It's pretty new. Vanessa Anzalone is on there many more times than I am. She has great information. She's much smarter, much better presenter than I am. There's other people there too. Also on my Facebook page, the Spirit World and the spirits around us. We have other people on that page too. And I just want to encourage everyone to learn as much as you can about Spiritism. It is a wonderful thing. So again, I'm going to end the program here and thank you, and God bless all of you that have listened to the show. Thank you.